guys, welcome back to my channel. So today, as you can tell, I have one eye done. We are testing out the Blends palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. I actually ordered this after I saw Michaela do a TikTok about this, and her look was really beautiful, and I'm actually recreating it. So we have one eye done. It's a pretty dramatic, colorful, dark eye, which I love. So here's the palette. It is 30 matte shades. So far, it's performing well, but I will give you my thoughts as we go. And you basically got like a plethora of colors. You've got basically the rainbow. You've got several dark shades. You've got a few neutrals, a good, little brown trio right here. You've got a white, a black, a gray. So you can do endless things with this. And she actually did this because when she took like a poll, or she asked people what's the best palette, there was like a tremendous amount of people that said this palette right here, which I had actually never heard of either. So I immediately ordered it because I thought it looked really intriguing and it seemed to perform well as far as her look went. I'll give you guys a look at what we're going to recreate, and then I'm going to tell you step by step how we did it, maybe in a little bit more detail than what she shared or I'm sharing on TikTok too, because I did do like a TikTok, hey, here's the look. I don't usually follow other people's eye looks because everybody's eye shape is different. And like I did tweak this a little bit to make it fit how I thought it would look best on my eye, but it was just minor changes like the placement. I feel like I didn't have quite as much room, so I went a little bit higher in the beginning than she did, but essentially it's the same exact look and it looked beautiful on her. So I'm starting with P. Louise base. She used the Juvia's Place base. I use P. Louise pretty much for everything. I want this base to be tacky when I'm putting this on. So personally, I've been doing one eye at a time. If I were sitting down and not filming anything, I'd probably do both eyes at once. But because I get easily distracted, I want to make sure I give myself plenty of time to complete my eye look before my base has gone a little bit drier. So I'm packing that on with a brush. This brush is a Luxie 209. This is a large shader, but I'm just using it to kind of like place this where I want it, almost up into the brow. And then I'm using the damp side of the sponge that I used today and just packing that in. Now what happens sometimes when I pack it in is that it gets a little bit too set almost, not by powder, but it's just setting in place. So after I do that, I'll go back and just add a little bit more. You can see it'll kind of get a little bit tackier again. She started with 3 very colorful shades, and it does look a little bit crazy at first, I'm gonna be honest, but that happens like anytime I do a super bold, colorful look. Halfway through or somewhere through the process, you're gonna look at it and be like, what the hell am I doing? It's okay. I feel like that's when I'm on the right track. So taking this orange, this shade is called Barley, and packing it right here. I went a little bit higher and didn't leave as much space under the brow. She left a little bit more, but it's not a dramatic change. You can definitely do it either way. If you have tons of lid space, which I mean, I have some, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I have tiny lids or anything, but if you have tons of lid space, you can, go a little bit lower away from the brow, but I am just doing it what I think is gonna work and basically just packing it in. You don't have to do this with any like real precision. I'm using a lot of Luxie brushes because that's just what's clean in front of me. So the one I use with Barley is a mini angled brush, just kind of fits nicely. And now I'm gonna use this eye shading 213 in the shade 32, which is like this really pretty darker aqua, and packing that right up against it, layering over just a teensy bit into the other shade. But you do have to be careful because those 2 shades will create like a darker greenish kind of looking shade, which is what we're going into next. So you don't want to go too crazy. And as you can see, I went a little high. I maybe shouldn't have gone that high, but it's okay. And then finally, a mini tapered brush. I'm going to take the shade Luxe. This is a dark green, and we're just going to pack a little bit. And as you can see, it's really dragged out afterwards, but most of that is done after we do the initial look. So I'm just going to do it in a little outward triangle in the corner of the eye. After that, she went in to do a little bit of blending. I actually grabbed some different brushes, something a little bit bigger. So for my orange shade, I grabbed another mini tapered brush from Luxie. Again, tons of Luxie brushes today. And I added just the teенsiest little bit of product on the brush. You don't need a lot. And I think I've said before too, I like for my orange, my orange. I like for my inner corner color to kind of go up to the brow and then kind of taper off. So you can see I don't have hardly any room between this orange and this brow, but I have a little bit more room through here. So I go a little bit close, easy done. And then I'm gonna take that same brush that I used for my aqua shade, and I'm taking off all the excess because I do already have that pretty high up. So I'm not taking any more shadow, and I'm kind of pulling it down a little bit before we blend, just so I don't have a lot of shadow going up. And then I'm taking a bigger brush and blending this aqua shade out. And then with that same brush I used initially for the shade Luxe, this dark green, I'm just gonna add and blend. It's like a very small blendy brush, so it kind of works for both. That gives you the initial shape. If you want to go ahead and blend it out some, you definitely can. I'm going to do a little bit more blending after. So the next step she took was to take the black shade. It is called Nevermore, which I love. It's a Poe reference. And we're taking that on another mini angled, it's a Luxe 131, and just pack into the crease. This shade is going to go a little bit low into the crease because you don't want to take it too high, obviously. So I'm packing and packing and packing. I noticed that the black kind of carried through the center of this triangle that stretches out. So what I did, because you don't have every detail in a TikTok obviously, what I did was kind of just pack it and then slowly blend towards that outer corner. I'm taking all the excess off my brush now and just gonna do like this. So that's what we're working with. She said a midnight blue, which I'm going to guess is the shade called Spellbound. And I'm taking that on a Luxe small tapered blending, shading it right above the black. So it's kind of just giving a little bit of relief from the bright color and the black. So I kind of love that step because it's such a subtle change, but it definitely makes a difference. Now I personally felt like my bright colors were kind of lost in the black, and that could have been saved from me just being a little bit more patient and careful with it. But instead, I'm just going to take a little bit more of my colors. You don't have to do this if you want the brightness to remain kind of subtle and just around the edges, but I'm taking a little bit more of those colors and just slightly bringing them back to life. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and cut my crease. So what she did, and especially if you're working with black in the crease and then you're going to cut the crease, is to clean up where you're putting your cut crease. So I'm gonna use a little Q-tip and some eye makeup remover, and you'll see what I mean. Because if I were to just lay down my base, that black around the edges is definitely going to peek through. So I'm using some Lash Food conditioning eye makeup remover and basically carving out exactly where you're gonna cut the crease. Now I'm going to take a yellow base. She initially used just a regular, I think it was blank canvas from P. Louise, but I'm going to use the yellow to kind of like brighten up the yellow shade. She said, you know, you could do that, and I'm like, yeah, I probably would, because the yellow shade that she used showed up a little bit duller than maybe we would expect. I'm using this e.l.f. and Nabella brush and start to pack it on. Should be about right when I open my eye to create that little space where we want to sit the base. What I'm gonna do is take Wildflower, which is, again, looks like it's going to be super neon. It just darkens a little bit on the eye, and pack that directly on top of that base. You want to get that on there before the base has a chance to crease and cover the area. I'm not going to take it all the way to the edge, but I am kind of pressing it near where the edge of that base ends. And if you need to, you can grab a very small brush just so I can carefully get the edges of the shadow. Now we're going to take the black right on the edge, taking off all the excess, and then gonna blend a little bit. While I have this brush, I'm going to take the tiniest bit of black, and I'm also going to press this brush because we've used it to blend a little bit. So I'm going to press it a little bit more flat, its initial shape, and I'm going right on the lash line, like right onto where my lashes are. And then for the lower lash line, we are going to blend that out with all of the colors that we used on the top. So you've still got the nice black, and then you'll have the color just like you have on the top. So taking Luxe, blending the outer edge. I think this side may have even turned out better than the other. And the funny thing is, I actually took a little bit of my original base brush, which was, it barely had anything else on it, and I packed it right on the edge because I felt like I had taken it a little bit too high. And believe it or not, that actually never causes any issues with my shadow. Like, you would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I promise it's fine. Because what I did, I'll show you on the other eye, is I have barely any of my original P. Louise base, that shade 0.5. I am taking all the excess off, and what I did was just kind of pack it. And don't be afraid, because you're going to be like, oh no, it's messed up. And then I pressed it. Look how smooth that looks. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the shadow back over that. And there's a little bit of Luxe, just a teensy bit. You don't need a lot. And then we'll take a little teensy bit of that shade 32. And I feel like it's smoother. It's just something about it, kind of layering that back over, and then when you look at it again, you're like, wow, that shit is really blended and soft. So once again, what I was saying is I'm taking Luxe. Be a little bit more generous than maybe you would think at first, because you do want the color to stand out. And as you can see, it's really blown out on this side. So I've got to match that energy over here, even if initially I didn't quite do it. So we're flicking. I can't wait to come up with some looks of my own with this and just play. This is a very, very fun palette. I'm gonna give you guys all the tea at the end, like what I really think about it, but I do think it's such a fun palette. Like, honestly, you can have so much fun with this, doing just any color combination you could really imagine. It's pretty much in this palette. Just a couple things that I did too, so that you know. I did do a wing liner with the Milani The Tank eyeliner. And then I used some Grande mascara. Oh, I'm almost making it in time. I feel like I've only been filming for 10 minutes. It's been 25, no big deal. My Lash Kiss Luxe Extensions Royal Silk. Luxe Extensions. I always say Luxe Extensions, but you know what I mean. Luxe Extensions Royal Silk, and I'm going to go ahead and put my House of Lashes glue. I cut these initially just to fit my whole eye, and then I made them a little bit smaller. Not quite a half lash, but not a whole lash, and I really like them like that too. Alright, so here is the finished look. Let me know what you think. Every time I do an eye look, I always look and think, oh, I could blend that a little bit better. But I could literally do that all day long, so I have to just stop and say, okay, it looks good. So let me know what you think about this look, and if you'd be willing to pick up the Blends palette. I think this is a really beautiful palette, again, with all the color options. Is this the best palette on the market? I don't know if I can say that, because I have some beautiful Norvina, Juvia's Place, Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, so many beautiful eyeshadow palettes, but for the price, it is really good. I think it's beautiful, and I'm gonna have so much fun playing with this. Very, very good, and better than the large majority of the palettes that I have. I'm happy that I have it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.